Welcome to the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Erik Tate. Joining me, as always, my good buddy, Nick Lacapo. Nick, how you doing?
Eric's like, you were ready to podcast, and I'm literally in my bed, oh yeah, I'm ready. I'll be ready in five minutes. So yeah, here we are. It's, even Archie just woke up here.
Ooh.
There he is. Podcast there. Two magic idiots.
Yeah.
3 magic idiots on this podcast at this point.
If you don't know and you listen to us on audio only, this a video version of this goes up that you sometimes get to see Archie, Rocco, and Bellatrix. So we can join by our
bonus. Yeah, drive that YouTube traffic. Let's go.
It's we're a little late on the recording because Memorial Day. Did you do anything special for Memorial Day?
No, but just like this morning, there was I think there was like 3 fighter jets that just absolutely tore over my apartment building yesterday, Memorial Day morning. So of course I was unaware of that. So I thought the next World War had already started, and and yeah, so that was very cool, but also like terrifying at the same time.
Ooh, I had similar experience Memorial Day evening. So I bought a new house, and I discovered that I live on a fireworks street. And so Memorial Day evening, there were some people launching some serious fireworks outside. So I was sitting on the porch and hoping my new house didn't burn down.
Yeah. Good old fireworks.
Let's
there
talk,
we go.
Talk about the world of magic.
Centered up. Oh yeah.
Talk about the world of magic real quick, and then I've got a listener question that I wanna hit us with. So the first is ethereal power cards dropped, which is kind of
yeah. Why not? So that was different. Like, so there's these cool cards now that you can collect on Penguin.
Yeah.
If I sound confused, it's because I didn't know anything about them before they came out. There's a card on Penguin right now that you can either buy, or I don't know if the deal's still up. Is the deal still up? It must be.
So I'll bring it up in my browser here.
On the Friday thing. Yeah, okay. So if you order over $75 in Magic, you get this ethereal money fountain card, which will show up in your account, like on your My Penguin Magic page. And what it does is it gives $1 off all P3 items.
That's
like
wild.
Just reduces the cost of all of the Penguin. There's a list of all the stuff.
Yeah.
Till 2026 or something like that. So
awesome.
Yeah, and it's just the first of more cards to come. So like bonuses will start to stack and things. So
yeah,
that's about all I know about it at the moment. But
I mean, that's really all there is to know about it, which is like, I mean, it's fun that we can give these discounts to customers, but I really like our boss Ajar is super into board games, and you and I are both CCG players, and so this is like, I want to collect.
Do you have it? I have the ethereal money fountain.
I don't yet, but there's some books that are coming out that I want to buy, and
it's right over here, and there it is. Right? Oh, I don't know. Do you got that?
Oh,
yeah, there it is. Yep.
Nick's already got the ethereal money card.
That's right. That guy got the first one. Yep.
I think I might have to buy a new double cross.
That'll almost get you there.
Yeah, so maybe double cross and some marked cards, and
that'll almost get you there. Yeah.
And then coming out today as we record this, so when people are listening to this, it will have come out yesterday. Not Worthy by Gregory Wilson.
Yeah, another coffee house trick. Those are classics. Like feels like a classic set at this point. All the coffee house magic, but this is a good one.
Yeah.
It's that like cherry stem trick. The one where you put the cherry stem in your mouth and you can somehow tie a knot with your tongue. It's not really a trick. It's
a skill.
It's a skill. He does this except with the drink stir that or it's kind of like the cap for the coffee cup, but also the stir,
like a splash plug, I think they call it. Like when you get coffee at a drive-through, they put them in there.
Yeah, so it's done with that magically.
Yeah,
and it's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty neat. I really like that. The idea of like the knot tying itself is pretty awesome, and the fact that like you kind of end up with this impossible object, which is neat. So
yeah,
it's good.
Any of those downloads are super fun. You always learn more than you think. because it's Greg.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the moment arises, you'll be happy you know it, right? So
It's definitely one of those things that you should have in your back pocket to know that you can do. And I love that all of the coffee house conjuring stuff you can basically just like set up at like the where you like fix your coffee up. What is that called? The supply stand? The
oh, I don't know. I'm not up on the Starbucks lingo.
yeah.
I know they all have words,
You just like
but
you get your cup of coffee, you go over there, you pour some sugar and milk in it, and then set up a magic trick, and you're ready to go.
that's it. It's the magic stand. It's the magic shop.
Yeah. And then a new chapter of the Force Project came out with Danny De Ortiz, which
Hmm.
is so I don't know if
I haven't seen any of them, so
I watch all of them. Uh,
oh,
so they come to us, and then I have to write the English language ad copy, and so that entails me like watching every one of the Danny the Ortiz projects tutorials. So I did that for his ACAN project. I did that for the Chaos project. Now I'm doing it for the Force project. This one's pretty neat. He always like he's teaching you new forces and new theories on forces, but he always dresses it up with like a trick. And with this one, you and the spectator each take a card sight unseen, put it face down in the deck, and then when you spread the deck, the cards match. And then you each just take random cards from the deck, trade them underneath the table, and every time they match. It's a really interesting way to do it. And the secret is pretty cool. And if you can subscribe to the entire series and get all of them for a bit of a discount, or just pick them up individually. I think they're like $20 or something like that.
hmm.
They're really good. It's again, it's like the coffee house conjuring. Like you always learn more than you expect. It's always stuff with like a regular deck of cards. It's rarely do you need gaffs or anything like that, and it's just you're picking up and adding to your toolbox that you're definitely going to use stuff in it.
Yeah, for sure. I know Danny's been putting. I mean, he's been pretty consistent with the content over the last since the plague.
Yeah, yeah. Since I think the world ended, so
Yeah, yeah.
fun news coming up here in Columbus. We have Kristen Lambert is in town this weekend to do a show.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
uh, she a lot of people will know her because she was like the youngest ever magician who was admitted to the Magic Castle Junior program. She was on Chris Angel's show. She's toured, done shows all over the world. But she's sort of reinvented herself lately in this really authentic sort of new age witchy woman. But
She's
she
she's the
does,
Phoenix. She's been
yeah,
reborn.
she does mentalism, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of she does the Q&A, and she's widely regarded as one of the best Q&A acts working out there right now. I mean, like Ian Rowland was really behind her doing this lecture. uh, who wrote The Dance? um
Oh, I know this answer, but not at the moment.
uh oh, Brad Henderson.
Brad
Why
Henderson.
was that?
Yes, one of my favorite.
Brad Henderson's an amazing performer and a brilliant magician, and he
Can
was
you
like,
buy that?
you can, I think.
Let me see.
Oh no,
It's,
it's out of stock.
I gotta say, that's like one of those hard
Yeah.
ones to get, right? Okay.
So I've become friends with Kristen over the last year, and and so we talk a lot about each other's acts, and so I know quite a bit about it because she performs at Mystique Dining just all the time. She's like definitely one of their go-to top performers, and we very frequently will follow each other at that event or that venue. And so we've been talking, and the really exciting thing is this marks the return of the Penguin Live lectures.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
So,
they're going to come back, and they're going to be a little bit different this time because we're really going to tailor things to each performer as they come in. We're not gonna be doing a ton of them. We're not gonna bring them back every week, but we want to like really make these like big, awesome, incredible events.
hmm.
Getting Kristen Lambert to spill the beans on exactly how she does her Q&A act and all of the psychology and cold reading technique that goes into it. She's really good at it. So this is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I don't know that it'll be the first one released. We'll find out.
Yeah.
I suppose that it might not be that case, but maybe it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be exciting. I'm excited
And
to see the show's on Thursday, so
yeah, she's
that'll
on
be
a
a good one.
plane right now as we
On a
record.
plane. Couple other important magic things.
Oh yeah.
One, ET deck. really, really important.
Who put
Two,
that out? Did you
um,
find it?
nobody. This was purchased at the tourist trap stand on the corner of Hollywood and oh, what's the name of the street that the Magic Castle apartments are on? I can't remember.
Oh,
Anyway, it's
yeah.
straight out of Hollywood. It's
Oh, that's great.
pretty junky, but I mean, it is the ET deck, so
Next time I'm at the castle, I got to go pick me up an ET deck.
one way back design. It shuffles okay. Anyway, the sun is just crazy. The David Blaine Eminem announcement yesterday.
I missed that.
Oh, it's a little cryptic, but not too cryptic. That it appears as if Eminem has a song coming out on Friday that is some way associated with David Blaine.
Oh, I did hear this. Sorry, my mind went to Eminem the candy, not
No.
Eminem the rapper.
Or so, yeah, Marshall Mathers, actually. I think he refers to him as Marshall in the video, so it's probably a
That's right.
Marshall song.
Because Eminem the Slim Shady is dead, right?
I don't know if he's dead, but yeah,
Yeah.
one of the three. So,
That's a big deal.
yeah, that should be interesting.
Mhm.
But other than that, no, that's it.
Well, we got a listener question in from a listener named Nick Garcia, and he asks, one topic that has come to mind is how to deal with the explainer in audiences that always claim to know that one or saw it from some guy you should check out. These people are annoying to other audience members and keep trying to get in on the spotlight. I feel like you can't ignore them. They get increasingly more brash. But whenever I've seen performers call them out and say something like, I assure you this one is mine and no one is doing it like this, it's treated like an invitation to the explainer. What should performers, and speaking personally as a layperson, audience members do to handle the explainers? I think Nick is also like kind of asking about like how to deal with hecklers in general.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere in that world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two different like, it depends on, are we doing a show here? Are we like out at the bar or something like that?
Yeah.
To, is going to depend. My aperture is like going crazy here with the sun going in and out of the clouds. Um, I'm not the best resource when it comes to this. I do have things that I use, but the truth of it for me is I just don't get it very often.
Yeah.
And it has something to do with the way that I present myself and the way that I interact with people that just doesn't tend to bring that stuff to the surface.
Yeah.
Not that it never happens, but I get it far less than most people, and I don't have the answer other than I know it's just however I am doesn't feel like the right time to do that types of things for people. That said, the biggest thing I ever used to combat the explainer, or really somebody that's just talking
Yeah.
during my show, whether they're explaining a trick or whatever, most people, if these are the people that are annoying other people in the room, they don't know if they're explaining a trick or talking about a trick. They just want that person to shut up so they can enjoy the rest of the show. Um, and the biggest tool I've used to combat that is silence.
Hmm.
Um, and it's a mastery over your script. So like if I see somebody and they just won't shut up, I'll just start looking at them
Hmm.
as I'm talking. I don't have to think about what I'm talking, right? Hopefully you're in that part too. So I'll
Yeah.
just start looking at them like, yeah, I see you. I can see you and I'm still talking. And then I'll just find those moments in my sentences where I can stop and take that extra second before I pick up my sentence again. And
Yeah.
it hopefully will just make them a little bit aware of how loud they are.
Yeah.
And most times it shuts them up. I always found that that was about the case.
Yeah. And I think that like, so there's two different kinds of like, well, really, now that I think about it, there's three different kinds of like people who are interrupting a show. There's the people who don't know it, that they don't realize that they're interrupting the show. They don't realize how loud they are. Either
Yeah.
they just don't realize because they're not aware, or they're drunk, or it's something. And if you just let those people sort of become aware and become embarrassed, they'll be quiet. And then there's the people who think they're adding to the show, right? Because most of the time someone's interrupting, or even like, or in explaining something like this, they they want they want to be a part of the experience because they see how much people are like you, and they also want to be liked. And so they don't mean it in a malicious way. And it's just giving them that brief moment of spotlight to feel like they accomplished something. And that's why like coming out with like standard lines or just even responding in a playful way and then moving on is sometimes just enough for them. And the last is the person who is malicious, who are very, very few and far between. And with those people, I just kind of stop performing for them. If I'm in a formal situation, like that there's some theaters when you go to, they'll say, "Hey, here's the code phrase is this, and if you say this in your show, we'll remove that person." Right? Like at House of Cards, I think it's when you ask for an old fashioned from stage, they'll go get security and drag somebody out.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Uh, but and that's like an old trick from like burlesque and vaudeville stuff where like you'll say something and it'll cue everybody that something's drastically wrong.
Mm.
Most of the time, like they want to help and they want to add to it, show that like they're kind of hip to it and like with you. They're trying to be on your side, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, if you there's two options. You
Yeah,
either engage or you don't.
yeah,
You know, there's I've kind of given you my way of shutting it down. Hopefully, like that's I think that's about one of the only things you can do that doesn't have to have you like intervene,
yeah,
right? You just kind of because you haven't said anything, you've just kind of created a awkward social space for them.
yeah,
Um, if you're because if you don't do anything, the crowd is just gonna not allow it to happen.
yeah,
The crowd is going to hate them,
yeah.
most likely. So, and it's not like a situation you want to create, but the other thing would be to have some material uh, baked in that you're able to handle them for a bit. Like maybe, yeah, you do call them up on stage and kind of do like a gotcha type style thing and
Yeah.
or something like that. It's just never been my route, so I don't really have the
I've got
answer for it.
I
We're
got two,
also all of us are not like professional comedians either, so it's difficult, you know.
I've got like two or three lines that I've used in various situations. That that have found that work for me, and it depends on like how somebody is coming at me. Like, there's always the person who wants to catch you out because magic frustrates them or whatever, right? And they just like, I wish I knew how it worked or something like that. So if like let's say I'm in the restaurant and there's a couple of tables that I hate working because they've got terrible angles. And so I do this color change, and if someone is like being a prick, they can see the card like in my hand, right? Because they're low or whatever. And so they go, I see the card in your hand. And I'll go, yeah, that's where it is. I'm not crazy. You're not six. None of this is real. And it gets a nice laugh because it breaks the tension from this person where they're like, oh, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm here to have fun. Uh, or if they just say, like, oh, I know how you did that one, especially if it's like someone who has like seen me double cross at the restaurant a couple times and now they're like they kind of know to watch before the trick starts. uh they go, oh, I know how you do that now. And I'll just say, oh, okay, awesome, but don't tell them, sell it to them later. And then it makes us conspiratorial. uh
Hmm.
if someone keeps talking and it's very clearly annoying everybody else, this is an old heckler line from way back in the comedy days when I was like more of a stand-up comedian, and I've seen other people use this. Uh, it's only if the audience is visibly annoyed at someone. I'll turn to them and say, when I wrote this script, I don't remember you having as many speaking parts. And what that does is embarrasses them and tells them forcefully to shut up. And I might use that once a year. It's very
Hmm.
seldom that you have somebody who is just like, who doesn't like get the hint, like, hey, this is like, I know what I'm doing.
Hmm.
But those other two are usually like pretty good because it, if you do engage, the best thing to do is to like, to make it like, okay, I acknowledge you. We all got to laugh. Now let's continue to move forward and be fun, right? Like it's just acknowledging the like the ridiculousness of the fact that like I'm pretending to have magical powers is sometimes that's like just enough to not.
Yeah. In a
And
social setting,
yeah,
uh,
just
it's a non-issue. I mean, most likely the person you're performing for is friends of the other people that you're performing for,
Yeah.
just stop.
Yeah.
There's really no reason to worry about it. I would be curious if they do know how the trick works, like not because they know the trick, but like they saw some method
Mm.
of out in the open. That's valuable information if
Yeah.
you can get it out of them. But I've I've done a lot of shows in the last 10 to 15 years here, and I can't really even recall much of a scenario ever because I just don't really engage. So if you don't let it bother you and just keep plowing through, I think that is an option for a lot of people that
You
aren't
know,
equipped to deal with those things.
that's a pretty good option too, is just not letting it bother you. Now, I think one of the questions that
Yeah,
Nick,
I guess maybe if that's not clear, you do not need to respond to somebody
yeah,
yelling from the audience. You absolutely do not need to engage at all. Just yeah, you heard it, but just keep talking
yeah,
because they'll either shut up or the audience will
shut them up.
tell them to shut up.
Yeah. And if you're in that like social situation, and you're just doing some magic for someone and they're like ruining it for everybody, just put your tricks away and let them kick that person out. Like
Yeah, no,
it's
yeah,
always better to have other people take care of it rather than you.
yeah. I know that there has been like that rise in it a bit
Mhm.
because of the social media clips and things of a lot of audience interaction at comedy shows and things, but I haven't noticed it.
Yeah, and I don't even really see it that much. Like even when we're out filming, like I mean,
No,
it doesn't happen very often. Now, the question that was interesting from that listener was, what do you do as an audience member?
oh, like me?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like if I was sitting in a show and someone kept yelling at the performer, like how would I handle that?
Yeah, I guess like yeah, sure. That's an interesting way to think of it. Like, because now you're basically analyzing what you should do on stage, right?
Yeah.
Um, Essentially, I'd be sitting there waiting to see what the performer is going to do, if anything, right? So if the performer ignores them,
Hmm.
it's like I understand, and it's just like how many times does the person have to say something before? Most likely somebody else is going to say something before I would.
Yeah.
It just takes one person in the crowd with as much confidence as the person yelling already to yell at them. So yeah, I somebody will handle it.
Yeah.
You don't have any responsibility to do that. It's up to the performer and the audience. But there is a point. There is a point, and you will know when that point is when like you have to break character and show to like handle it. But depending on where you're working,
Hmm.
those things sometimes take care of themselves. So
Yeah. And it's, letting it go is just as good. You don't really need to deal with it. Like, and it's funny how many times I've had these conversations with people and uh on like podcasts or interviews where people are or where I'm on a panel or something like that, and a magician will ask me, how do you deal with hecklers? And at the end of the day, it's actually like it's so rare that I wonder if there's more of a fear
well,
in the performers that they're going to have to deal with a heckler
sure,
than it's
sure.
actually common, because most people are just nice. You know what I mean?
It depends on what you're doing up there. Like I said it at the beginning, it like has to do with me and all that. But I don't know. Are you getting a heckler at the same spot in your show? Well, is it because you bring somebody up on stage and make a bad joke, or
Mhm.
there's some sort of like transitional line you're using where you're saying something controversial or
Mhm.
something like that? Because if you remove that, most likely you won't get that heckler anymore. Maybe you want to say that thing, but it's probably going to come with some some side effects, you know, and that might be people yelling at you from the crowd. So if you're getting it in the same spot all the time, it might be material based or something that you've said previously that leads up to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is that like if you're experiencing hecklers on a regular basis, and it's not,
It's something with you if you are. It really is.
yeah, and you need to use that as a learning point. It's the same as if you keep getting caught. like doing a particular sleight? Like, why are you getting caught? Is it because you think your diagonal palm shift is great, but actually it's a terrible move and you shouldn't use it?
Mm. Yeah, the audience isn't sitting there ready to yell at you. You
Yeah.
know, they're just not.
You,
Uh,
even though magic, it does make a show sort of inherently more interactive because of the way most magicians perform, because you're getting people up and putting them back down, getting people up and asking for volunteers and stuff. You are sort of inviting them into a conversation as opposed to like stand up or music, which is very much more of a monologue and the audience is more conditioned to sit.
yeah, I don't bring people on stage. That's why. That's why I get me hecklers.
I don't either.
I do. I bring a couple, but not many. Not many.
I My current show has no one coming on stage, and I like it that way. That is my stage.
Yeah,
They're not allowed to be up there. I'd have to pay
yeah.
them.
I don't have to bring anybody up on stage, but I typically bring just one or two, and it's totally optional for me in the moment whether if I look at them, I'm like, oh yeah, they'll be fun. Bring them up here, you know. But other than that, no.
Yeah, no, I don't want them to touch my duck.
It's having, I mean, that's another conversation, but if you start like heavily relying on routines that have to have people on stage, it's a good thing, like you want to have those tricks that you can do that, but from venue to venue, sometimes they can be problematic, depending on where the audience is and how they get up on stage. And
I think
yeah.
that's true of close up as well. Now that we talk about that, like when I think about like a lot of the tricks that we've been doing lately, at least the ones that I've sort of like done for Penguin, there's not a lot of like, at least a lot of the stuff that I'm doing are the audience interaction is pretty minimal. Maybe they'll pick a card, maybe they'll make a choice, but normally I'm sort of like presenting a routine to them, and I'm just like thinking like, some of the John Bannon packet tricks that I was doing, some of the like the incredible pairing nothing is definitely like I'm doing this thing sort of at them. Mental photography that I'm working on right now, I'm doing it at them, and so it doesn't really invite that interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
even in close up, you're not really sort of metaphorically bringing them onto the stage.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, if all your routines are like monologues, it's gonna be, you'll never get a heckler. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah,
No, your show shouldn't be all that, but
yeah,
um, yeah, if all of your routines involve five people coming up on stage and picking their pocket and throwing jokes around and having a great time, I mean that can be for a great show, but it's also going to open up those avenues
yeah.
for anybody that wants to be a dick. But I don't think generally, I don't think people are. I think people are super fun.
Yeah. Well, and it sort of comes around to the fact that like we're in a new golden age of magic, just because Penn and Teller Fool Us, Masters of Illusion, magicians keep winning AGT. Uh, people are like hip to the fact that magic is cool now. I mean,
Mm.
I get very rarely do I get people going, "Hey, can you pull a rabbit out of a hat?" Or, "Oh no, I don't. I don't want to see the magic here for the kids." Like people are just like hip to like the fact that magic is awesome.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think
cool.
so. Did you know this ET deck has a different movie still on every card?
What?
Every card has a different picture on it. It's
I
insane.
have to get that deck.
Every single card has a different picture. Let's see. Let's see. Let's get a good one. Yeah,
Oh,
there you go. Here's
important question.
yes.
Uh, oh, that's such a good face for ET.
This is not for the podcast listeners, but yeah,
You gotta
okay.
get on YouTube for that. Uh, do you remember when they re-released ET and they digitally removed the guns from the cops' hands and put it
Oh wow.
headphones and radios?
I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Are there any of those stills in that deck?
Oh, I don't have time to
Oh
go
man.
through it's probably, it's a lot. I think ET is like almost on every card. No, that's not true now that I'm going through it. But yeah, I am quickly looking through this deck to see if there are any police officers with guns.
Well,
Baby
I,
Drew Barrymore, that's for sure. But
Theory 11, I think I'm throwing down the gauntlet. You guys got to get on an ET deck.
no, don't even mess. It's already been done. It's right here. Uh, yeah, no cops in the deck. But
All right, Nick, I'm going to throw it over. I had a really great conversation with Paige Thompson, whose career is on the rise now. And so, and we're talking, actually, we talked a lot about performing and how she got really good being in the trenches at the Chicago Magic Lounge. So I think we're going to throw it over to Paige. But before that, do you have anything coming up that the listeners need to need to hear about?
I don't think so. Just doing my show this weekend. That's it.
Yeah, you're doing your show this weekend. I'm going to be in San Diego next week at Mystique, and then I think we're gonna see Kristen Lambert this
Yeah.
weekend, and
Yeah. If anybody's in Columbus,
come
let,
come check come check it out.
yeah.
All right, see you, Nick. Time for the main event.
Thanks as always to Nick for joining me on the show. On to the main event. Paige Thompson has appeared on Masters of Illusion, Penn Teller Fool Us, and she's a resident member of the Chicago Magic Lounge. She's a star on the rise. She's now headlining conventions, cruise ships, and theaters around the world. I caught up with her to find out where she came from and where she's going, and now you get to join our conversation. Paige Thompson, thanks so much for joining me here on the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on, because we've become really good friends as I come to the Chicago Magic Lounge, and you and your cohorts take such good care of me, but also because your career is on absolute fire right now.
That is very nice of you to say.
So for those of us for our listeners who don't know who you are, could you talk a little bit about where you came from and where you are now?
Yeah, there's probably, I'm not very known. I wouldn't say I'm like a known magician. But yeah, I started magic when I was 6 years old, and that's something I fell in love with like instantly. And I knew at a very young age that this is what I wanted to do. I was hoping that I would one day make a living doing magic tricks, and slowly but surely it came along. Grew up in Northern California, kind of hopped around, lived in Vegas, lived in Branson, and now my home base is Chicago and the Chicago Magic Lounge.
So you are one of the house magicians at the Chicago Magic Lounge, which means you sometimes feature on the main stage, sometimes you do the 654 Club, sometimes you headline the main stage, but a lot of what you do is close up at the tables. And I have to imagine that I'm slightly jealous because you're working 5-6 nights a week.
Yep.
You can't help but get good working that often.
It's really, I say this a lot, and it's true though. I think I am the luckiest, one of the luckiest magicians in the world, because I have a guaranteed place to do magic every night. And then if I get another opportunity, I can leave, but then I could come back and still have my 5 to 6 nights doing magic tricks at a home base that is an 8-minute drive from my house. It is really the most ideal. It's still like I have to pinch myself at times to be like, this is actually happening. Like, this is my job. This is my life. And I'm doing what I love. And it's just hard to believe that this is what I do. And it truly is the realest thing anybody ever told me growing up. The more you do it, the better you get. And yes, it is the truest, because when I moved to Chicago, I was like 30 something, we'll say 30s. And that's when I finally started to get okay, is when I was in my 30s. So it felt like a long time, especially starting magic at the age of 6. But finally in my 30s, I feel like I'm not so bad at it.
When you're working the tables, and this has become a topic of conversation on the podcast more recently, just because I keep finding myself talking to workers like you, people who are working a lot. How often do you break in new material?
That's what's so cool, is it's not that hard to break in material, because also the audiences we have are ideal. It is the most ideal situation. You're not going to a restaurant where people don't know there's going to be a magician, or they're eating their meal and they're like, we don't want to watch magic. There's none of that. The second I walk to a table, people are like, oh, yeah, we're excited, there's magic. It's like, okay. So when you're working on something new, it's not as intimidating, because the audience is there for you. You're rarely being challenged. And it's the weirdest thing, because people always like to kind of like try to get the magician, but
Yeah.
not there. They just want to see magic. So working on new stuff is amazing, and it helped my repertoire grow immensely, because I was terrified of close-up magic when I moved to Chicago. I did Omnideck, and that was it. Like
Being terrified of close-up magic and moving to a city that has a reputation for close-up magic is...
That's how uneducated I was in close-up magic. I had no idea that Chicago was this hub of close-up magic, and then I was immediately intimidated because these people were insanely talented, and I was nowhere near that with my cartoon deck, that
were... What has been your experience meeting magicians there? Because I know there's very few people who occupy a similar space that myself and Nick Lacapo do, where we've got different magicians coming in all the time. And so periodically we get to work with our heroes, which is like, it's wild, like having only met someone through reading their books, and then suddenly I'm responsible for picking them up from a hotel and taking them out to dinner. And it must be a similar experience with you, because Ben Barnes, the entertainment director there, books some heavy hitters all the time. So what is that experience like for you? It's
surreal in some ways to think that these people want to come and be there, like it's so cool that I am at the space that people are like wanting to be at. And we see new people every week. It is the coolest thing. Like, I'll hear about a trick, and then all of a sudden that guy is now doing a lecture for us, the next week. But it's also we have such a great home-based community that I feel that when people come from out of town, and I hope you feel this way, is you feel extremely welcomed, and you feel like you become a part of our little Chicago world. We were very lucky to have such a good crew at home that I feel like we get to see the true identity of the people that come in, because we try to be as welcoming as possible.
You absolutely are. Chicago is undoubtedly one of my favorite places to play, because I get to go hang out with my friends, which is nice. Let's talk a little bit more about your career. Lately, you have been doing some big moves, and I know that you just got off of a cruise ship. This was your second contract on a cruise ship?
It was actually my third so far, so I'm still a little newbie to this, but love it.
Well, so I've talked to people who work cruise ships on a regular basis on this show, but it's usually people who have decades of cruise ship work under their belt. How are you finding the transition from, the nice, safe cocoon of Chicago Magic Lounge to, it's you and 2 45-minute acts, and you're out there on your own. Like it's not to it's sink or swim. I hate to use that term since we're talking about ships.
I was terrified because that's a lot of material. But my first ship was over this past Christmas and New Year, which was kind of a weird thing to be away from everybody and out on a ship doing magic. But it was also, I think, a very awesome first experience, because everybody on the ship is with their families. They're celebrating the holidays. They're all so happy, and it's such a, it's always a good time of the year. People are in good moods. So my audiences were so warm and so loving, and they just, like, every time I walk around the ship, they would just come up, and they love to talk to you. They love to, oh, that's the magician. And I have purple hair, so definitely it's easy for people to spot me and be like, oh, there she is, there's the magic lady. So it was great to hear the feedback from those things. The thing that once I started my show is I was like, why was I so scared? And I think this is with a lot of performers, but I have to be prepared. I am one of the over preparers. So when I knew I needed 2 45s, I have the lounge as a home base, so I can work out material. We don't have 45-minute sets, but so then I start looking around at other venues, and then there's the Mystique Dining. I'm like, great, they do 45-minute sets. So I went down to San Diego for 10 days with Mystique, and I ran my 2 45s over and over and over. And this was a week before I hopped on a ship. So I think it's so beneficial. We as magicians have these venues that are willing to book us and let us try out material. So pretty nice.
I'm going to be in San Diego in a couple of weeks, and you're just reminding me I have to buy plane tickets right now after we get off the podcast. But I know breaking in my show there, I've wanted to do ships, and I don't get to perform as often, and so I'm a little protective and wanting to like do my show because it's so much fun. But maybe I'll finally get off my butt and actually like use San Diego to try and break in some new material.
You should. Yes. It's the best. You have 2:45, like go for it, go crazy. And 45 minutes, it goes quicker than you think.
Yeah. How did you go about selecting material for the show on the ship?
So for me, I had done Liberty Magic in Pittsburgh, and that needed to be like an hour and 15 to an hour and a half show. Mm-hmm. So I had created enough material, but I really structured that to be a full show. Mm-hmm. So I took out some of those pieces and added some newer pieces to structure the different 245s. But because I had run so much material with Liberty Magic and then with Mystique Dining, is I was able to finagle and figure out what would be good for the ship and a ship audience. Like there's no fire. I didn't want anything to be dangerous. Like I do a goofy trick with like a roulette routine, but I'm like, I don't know, that might be too iffy because there's so many kids in the audience. So I try to make it as family friendly and I mean, I'm not like dark or any sort of bad humor. I'm pretty boring, but I just didn't want anything to be taken as spooky or anything along those lines. So for me, it was making sure my opening and closing I loved because I want people to, like instantly like me. And then I hate the word of filler. I didn't want any filler routines. I didn't want to do any classics. And that's something that a lot of people on ships have already come up to me to say is that my show is very original to what they've seen from other cruise magicians. So I guess people on the ships notice when you're only doing Rubik's Cubes or something. I
have to imagine that there's people on cruise ships tend to be the same kind of people who go on cruises frequently. That seems to be like not like a lifestyle, but like something if you either love cruising and do it a lot or don't. And as a result, you probably become fairly familiar with a number of the performers on the ships.
Right. Yes. The performers. Yeah. And these performers, most of them have done it for years. So when I'm having dinner with these, like this last ship, I was with 2 comedians that were amazing and a juggler. And they all were just like, oh, yeah, you didn't do the classics that we see all the magicians do.
I remember talking.
And that's a goal of mine is to make sure I'm not doing anything that anybody else would also be doing.
I remember talking to someone once, and it was a magician who got on the ship. I think it was John Armstrong, where he was doing his tech. And the guy said, so here's where we've reinforced the stage to drop the bowling ball. And then here's there was so many people had like produced the bowling ball from the pad of paper. And he had to be like, no, that's not what I do. Like,
right. No, that was one of the tricks that they brought up was like, is the bowling ball going to fall? I was like, no, I promise there won't be any bowling ball. None of that.
Yeah. So your first show was nerve-wracking because you were scared. So breaking in the second show,
right?
Was it more comfortable at that point?
For sure, I did. I felt like people were already on my side, and like I had hung out with these people on the ship already for 12 days. Like they all knew, and they all said, "We can't wait for your next show." So I felt a lot more at ease because that first time walking out, you don't know what these people are going to think of you. The benefit was for me, my first show was on Christmas Day, and I also do a Christmas themed trick. So I was excited that I was able to utilize that for me because I love Christmas and I like to be nerdy like that. But and then my second show was on New Year's Eve. So I had the 2 holidays and the people, they were just fun. And I felt after the really once I started the first show, I felt like I could breathe. Once you hear the audience respond to you, it's like, okay, this isn't any different than the Magic Lounge or any of the venues, it's the same.
And now you're showing up on more and more conventions. Because the last time I saw you on the IBM convention in Pittsburgh, which was exciting. And then you recently got back from China or?
Thailand.
Thailand. Where you were on, which convention was it out there?
And it wasn't actually a convention. This was Tony Hassini's magnificent six. But there was 7 people, but it was called the Magnificent Six. So that was a great, unique experience. I got to work with some amazing female magicians because the idea was great. Bring 6 female magicians together. We all perform a show for the Queen of Thailand for this international dance festival over in Thailand. It was an amazing event that they put on. I mean, they brought out West Side Story from Broadway. Like, these people put a ton of money into this festival, and all these people from Bangkok come and watch this singing dance festival plus magic, I guess was.
Did you get to meet the royal family after the show?
No, they presented us with flowers though. So,
really?
Yes, it was very fancy.
Is there is there more pressure when you know that there's royalty in the? I mean, especially coming from a place where we don't have royalty.
Right. The thing with I don't get very starstruck. I don't know. To me, it's like they're a human, and so are we. And I don't know anything. I don't know anything about the royal family of Thailand. So I think I had like no connection. To me, it was crazy because there was it sat over 2,000 people. Like, this was a giant venue.
Wow.
And I'm doing like walking knot and floating rose on this stage. So I'm in this little tiny corner of the stage.
Yeah.
But he also had illusions for us all to use. And there was some fun with that. But
you have a history with illusions though, because if I'm not mistaken, didn't you assist Dan Sperry for a while?
I sure did for many years. I lived in Vegas starting when I was 19. Dan Sperry has actually been my best friend since, I don't know, I was 14, 15. We met going to magic conventions. We would talk on MSN Messenger, AOL, like little nerds talking about magic. And then 2006, Dan got a gig in Vegas, World's Greatest Magic Show. That was at the Greek Isles at that time. So he was one of the spots in that show, and he's like, Paige, I need a roommate. Come move to Vegas. And I was like, okay, sure. I'm 19. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Move to Vegas. Right. So that's what I did. But I didn't know what I was doing. This was I didn't know how to market myself online. I didn't know anything. I had no clue what I was doing. So I started assisting magicians because magicians knew, oh, she already knows magic, so we don't have to teach her. And then she could teach the assistants as well. So I had worked with Dan in the past because he took off after he did that America's Got Talent in like 2009 or 10. And so he booked a tour, and then I started touring with him. We went to Germany a few times. So,
wow, you were on that tour,
right? Yeah.
I mean, that tour is a thing of legend. I mean,
it was epic. We did it twice actually. We did 2 different tours in Germany 2 years in a row, and then he did Das Supertalent, which is the German version of America's Got Talent, and that's what got him like this popularity in Germany. So they wanted us to come and tour, but that super talent thing they were obsessed with him. It was crazy. There's no pressure on me. I'm seeing the behind the scenes of these TV things. Like, I was just the one to pop out of a cage, like no pressure. I could just see what was going on. And it was really cool to learn being behind the scenes of those things. the super talent, and then I assisted a guy on America's Got Talent, Antonio Restivo.
Okay.
He had like a fire magic act, and he's like, "Hey, Paige, help me teach these girls how to jump in and out of boxes and help with these illusions, because I don't dance at all. Got zero skill in that, but I know how tricks work." So worked with him, worked with Darcy Oak, who's a Canadian magician who's really taken off, and he was a good friend of mine when I was little. I assisted Rudy Kobe for a bit. So yeah, I've assisted for a lot of magi.
What do you think listeners should know about being an assistant? Because there's not a ton of professional assistants out there, and you must have a different experience with it, both doing the assisting and being a very competent and talented magician in your own right. So it must give you a bit of a different experience or a different relationship with assisting.
The thing, I think, because I love magic so much, and I respect magic, and I fell in love with illusions when I was young. That was the first thing I did, because that's what I saw on TV was these bigger props. I'd go into my garage and start cutting out cardboard to make, the tent illusion, or start chopping wood to make a base for a sword basket. Like, that's what I did, is I competed with these illusions when I was like 13, 14. Wow. And I thought illusions were amazing.
Yeah.
I still do, but I just have a respect now for all of magic. I had such a tunnel vision with the illusions, but I think assistants are such an important part of illusions. You need somebody you can rely on, and I think that's why so many magicians trusted me, because they knew how much I cared about magic, that I would never try to overdo anything or try to overstage the performer. Yeah. I just want the magic to go well, because I don't want anything to be revealed, and I want things to look as clean and as magical as possible. I don't care about any attention on me. And I know that's hard for people to feel, especially if they're a dancer. They want people to look at them. I don't care. That's not the focus of the magic. The focus is, did the trick work? Was it quick? Was it amazing? It's hard to find somebody that doesn't want to look important. And it's not that you don't look important. It's just that it's not the focus. Yeah. The assistant isn't always the focus of the trick. It's the trick itself.
It's incredible advice, and definitely something people should listen to, especially coming from such a seasoned pro like yourself. Paige Thompson, I've enjoyed chatting with you. I think we're going to have you back on the show again soon. Everyone should go check you out at the Chicago Magic Lounge, and looking forward to seeing where you go next, because it seems like you're on the rise.
Thank you. So fun chatting with you, Erik. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's going to do it for this week, kids. Thanks so much to Paige for being on the show, and thanks to you for listening. As you heard at the beginning of the show, the Penguin Live Lectures are coming back, and that means our theater is going to be hosting some insane acts in the coming weeks and months. Go to p3magictheater.com for ticketing information. As always, we're a weekly podcast, so please be sure to like and subscribe, as well as share your favorite episodes on the social media platform that you're looking for the correct temperature and speed settings to print nonsense in TPU on your 3D printer. If you wanted to reach out to me about anything on this week's show, you're actually going to have to send me the settings to print this rainbow TPU filament on an Anchor Maker M5 that I got from Micro Center. I have no problem printing the gray and black TPU, but if I'm going to start printing rainbow colored squishy Pokemon to hand out at Columbus Pride Parade, I need to get those settings right. But if 3D printing squishy Japanese video game characters isn't your cup of tea, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Erik Tait. That's at ERIKTAIT. From me and everyone else here at the P3 Magic Studios, practice, perform.